afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jenny Montgomery. We're talking today about ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. It is the most common type of motor neuron disease. Patients with ALS develop muscle weakness that eventually progresses to paralysis and respiratory failure. But now new research from the University of Utah shows there may be a mutation that could determine a person's risk of ALS. The mutation prevents neurons from surviving, which means the body cannot develop properly. Experts think they can use this information to create novel ALS treatments. 2 years ago, the FDA approved a controversial new drug designed to slow the progression of ALS. At the time, it was promising. Here's Rena Roy.
A new weapon in the fight against ALS. The FDA giving the green light to a new drug called Relyvrio. Studies suggesting it may help slow the progression of the disease for some patients. In a trial with 137 patients, those who received the drug for 24 weeks experienced a slower rate of functional decline compared to those who got a placebo. ALS is a rare disease that leads to destruction of nerve cells that control voluntary muscle movements and can affect the ability to chew, walk, breathe, and talk. It weakens muscles over time, leading to paralysis and often death in several years if breathing muscles are affected. This new drug joins at least 5 other FDA-approved drugs that treat ALS or help slow functional decline, according to the ALS Association. The disease currently has no cure.
Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
An unfortunate update, though. The drug manufacturer agreed to pull the medicine from the market back in April, acknowledging it didn't help patients with ALS after all. According to the FDA, more than 20,000 people are living with ALS, and another 5,000 are diagnosed every year. One of those patients joins me today in the studio. Christian Hirsch will talk to us about his disease, his amazing life thus far, and his goals in the time he has left. Pretty powerful stuff after the break. Christian Hirsch is a realtor, a writer, and indeed a fundraiser, but we'll get to all of that a little bit later. Christian, I want you to know, was born abroad, and he moved here to Augusta when he was 11. He graduated from Evans High School with an athletic scholarship to run cross country at Augusta College. Note, I said Augusta College. Writing was in his blood from an early age, and the first line in his novel has been stuck in his head since he was in college. His novel is called The Moscow Enigma, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But first of all, I want you all to meet Christian Hirsch. Christian, thank you for your time today. And I want to just let the audience know that Christian is here because one of my colleagues, Dee Griffin, emceed a book signing or a book reading or something a while back, and she came into work and she goes, "Jenny, you have to meet this man. He is fascinating." And she was showing his book to me, and she just went on and on about you. And so I shot an email to Christian, and I said, "Your PR person, Dee Griffin, tells me that I've got to have you on the show." So I am just looking forward to talking a little bit about your life. I mean, how interesting that you grow up in Europe, then you have teenage years in Augusta, and then you go back to Europe, and you spent years working abroad.
I did, yeah. I mean, I've lived in so many parts of the world, but obviously we moved here. I went to Evans Junior High School, Evans High School, Augusta College.
Yeah.
And, but you know, my heart and family and soul was abroad. So after graduating from university, I left 2 suitcases and a bike and went to work in a stock room at Foot Locker. And to make a long story short, I eventually became director of footwear for Foot Locker Europe, over 500 stores, 14 countries. And that was in Munich and eventually in Holland. So I lived in Holland about 11 years. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, you know, moved back to Germany. I had a global role with Puma.
Yeah.
The lifestyle sport company, and had a very senior role, and I traveled so much. Did a lot of traveling with Foot Locker and with Puma, and kind of saw the world. and ultimately then moved to Dubai in a role where I traveled a lot in Africa, in the Balkans, and Afghanistan, because our client was NATO and the UN. So trust you and me going to Africa and seeing how those UN folks worked in very remote places.
Well, and this is interesting to me because, okay, so we're taking a guy who did Foot Locker, you did Victoria's Secrets.
In Russia, yeah.
And then NATO too. I mean, it's,
Well,
it's
I ran
a crazy combination.
I ran all of the PXs.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
in the UN, their PX was their lifeline.
Yeah.
In NATO,
Sure.
it's the extras because they got fed, but they want cigarettes or potato chips or phone cards. Except for the Americans, I oversaw all the retail for NATO in theater. So it meant I went a lot to Kabul and stories there. It's really insane being in conflict, or Kandahar.
Yeah.
And then even
Oh, sure.
Africa with the Sudan split. But the Balkans was real fun. Kosovo, didn't have to worry about getting shot at. But ultimately then that role ended and I got a role in Russia. Now, a lot of people think I wrote this book, Moscow Enigma, when I moved to Moscow, but I oversaw a couple brands in Russia, in the CIS, the Central Independent States, and that was Victoria's Secrets and Payless. So very dichotomous, brands, but
Yeah.
you got a customer, a price, and a product. And it doesn't matter if you're selling sneakers,
It doesn't matter
bras,
what the commodity is,
or
does it? It's
potato
just-
chips.
Yep.
And
Right.
ultimately, that was a one-year role, and you're on a visa, Jenny, so I had nowhere to go.
That's right. When that runs out, you got to get out.
So I happened to be here for Thanksgiving visiting friends. My role was ending in 2 months, and my friend from college said, he was a broker for
Yeah.
real estate, said,
Yeah.
do real estate. You have a interesting background. This was in 2012. The markets turned around, and I came with 2 suitcases and a bike again. Now, all my furniture was in Amsterdam, and 5 years later, I shipped all my stuff. I finally bought a property.
Gave it 5 years and decided,
Well,
yeah, okay,
no,
I'll
I
come
mean,
back.
the first year, it took me a while to get my license, and
Sure.
then you needed 3 years income before you could buy something. So, and anyways, now I do real estate, and I love it.
That's amazing. Well, you certainly have a lot to talk about with your clients, that's for sure. The book is the cover is just great, but you published it. It was not self-published. You had an editor in Dubai who encouraged you to go ahead and get it published,
Yeah.
and it's been published for several years now.
Yes. Yes, it has. So, I mean, that's a story for a whole nother show, but I had 3 months, Jenny, between roles. I wasn't allowed to start the new one until I had this 3-month moratorium. And I had nothing to do, and I had this first line, something about the rain pattering hard against the window, and life was a mosaic blur of motion and color. And I made a novel out of it. Every morning I would write for 2 hours, and 2.5 months later, I had the book.
Wow,
Went to
that's
Dubai.
great. So you were strict about you did
Yes.
it every day, a certain amount of time.
Yes.
Good to know.
And I would listen to Enigma music, which I love, and inspired the title Enigma. But I thought I would get self-published, and I saw this editor in Dubai. She went to Oxford, University, and she said, you have something. I think you should try to get published. I mean, I'm traveling to Africa. When do I have time? But long story short, I found an agent. That was the big coup, because then I knew that was good enough. They could make money off of me.
Yeah.
And the agent eventually got me published.
We're having a fascinating discussion with Christian Hirsch. We need to take a break for a minute. Stick around. You're going to enjoy hearing about his commitment to cancer research after the break. Welcome back, everyone. We're talking today with Christian Hirsch. He is a realtor, he is a writer, And he is a fundraiser for Paceline, which supports research at the Georgia Cancer Center. He's been a big advocate for cancer research from before he even lived here in Augusta. He lived abroad for many years. But in Augusta, he's been the #1 individual fundraiser of more than 600 people with a donation of over $15,000. He's had more than 100 people donate to him. And Christian is here with us talking about his life, his travels, his very interesting variety of jobs. His work has taken him around the world. We were just hearing about the book. He's also on the cover of this real estate magazine. And I'm really impressed with this and all the pictures and the profile of you in that. Cancer.
Yeah.
As you've said, we all know somebody who's been touched by cancer.
Yes.
You know, we all do. You've called it a vicious disease. And you've been committed to raising money for research. And cycling has been a big passion of yours. And so that was a natural fit then, I guess, for you to become involved with Paceline.
It really was. I mean, my inspiration was I'd lost a really good friend who I had a crush on years before, right after I moved to Europe. And she, in about 32 years old, died of cancer. And in Holland, just unbeknownst at the time, there was a big national event using sports cars, and I may have had a few incredible sports cars in my life.
Of course you did.
And the Martin Memorial would take 100 exotic cars and use that to raise money for cancer. And we would then take a terminally ill cancer patient for the day and travel around Holland and then end on Zandvoort racetrack, and we'd do fast laps. And we'd raise $250,000 dollars for cancer every year, and I did that for years. And then I came back to America, and just that car in the magazine, I was downtown at a little car show, and the CEO for Paceline, Martin, who's from the UK, I ran into him. He loves Alphas, Romeos, and come to find out, he does cancer, and I'm like, I do fundraising.
Yeah.
And we became fast friends, and I really made an effort to, also I may be a bit competitive, but to a good cause, to raise money to help Martin and Paceline in their initiative to cure cancer faster.
Yeah, cure cancer faster.
So I loved combining a hobby, cycling, and real estate, where I could really be touching a lot of people and them supporting me in that initiative.
And it's an interesting and a sad irony that you have been so committed to helping find a cure for this terrible disease, for cancer. And at the same time, in the last years, you're fighting your own battle with ALS, which we know commonly as Lou Gehrig's disease.
Yes. That is a cruel death and very painful. And there's no cure. So, it is what it is. My voice is, it's starting to wane, my arm strength. So, I'm still kicking, and I get a lot of support from my realtor friends of different brokerages, of the community. And I'm very blessed to have so many people rally behind me,
Right.
As I decline, every week. But
Well, and you can feel the decline happening.
oh God, yeah. I mean, it's just. I mean, ALS shuts down every system: your muscular, your digestive, your respiratory. So I'm, in all regards, a shell of my former self.
Do you think that it makes you think about legacy, knowing that you're living with,
Yeah.
a terminal illness?
It does, and I don't have a legacy, and I don't have family. I never had children, and my legacy has been teaching and helping young adults with career paths. I also coach agents in our center, and
Yeah.
I know lots of them are very inspired by me, and I'm providing an inspiration to people that I just can't fathom how I inspire them. But that's my inspiration is to inspire them.
Do you think you're going to write anymore?
No, I have no idea where that came from.
But, well, it came from a literary contest you won when you were in junior high
Well,
school.
true.
The J.B. White's literary
Hey,
contest.
for those Augusta folks out there, remembers J.B. White's, they had a literary contest. And in junior high school, I placed. We went to Augusta College and Performing Arts Center, and the very few winners met the president of the college and got in the paper.
Yeah.
And it was so, like, inspiring. And it told me I could write.
Right.
Despite making a C in English 101 at Augusta College, because everybody made a C or an F in English 101. But yeah, I mean, it was something that's always been identified me. I was like, oh, Christian writes really good emails. You should write a book someday.
You do write very, very good emails.
You should
yes.
write a book someday. And I finally had that opportunity, and I just don't think I could do it again.
Did you, now when Dee met you, were you doing a book reading or a
book
signing?
signing.
A book signing.
Yeah, I'm going to have a book signing in the next weeks at Barnes & Noble at the mall. We haven't penciled in a date, but I will definitely be at Augusta Mall soon with another book signing.
I love that. I love that.
I know, it's now the only thing that's left in my life. I never really pushed that book, but now that I'm at the end of life, I feel like, you know, it's something I'm really proud of, and I want people to read the book.
You know, when you talk very freely about this illness, and to say, knowing that you're at the end of life, is that scary to you?
Yes. I mean, when I first heard of ALS, a friend of mine's husband got it in 2009. He died in 2012. And I never heard of ALS. I mean, I did, you know, Lou Gehrig, seeing him.
Yeah, right.
I'm the luckiest man, you know, the 1929 Yankees. But when I looked into it, it was like, Lord, Jenny, those poor people to get ALS. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
That's the worst way to die, I thought. I sure hope I never get that. And of the, 4,816 ways to die, that was the only one that ever frightened me, because it's so cruel. It strips your humanity. And I got it. And it was more not that, oh my God, I got ALS. It was, what are the odds that I got this? Because it's so rare. And it's been that in the back of your mind, like, this worst way to die, maybe drowning or something, but at least that takes a few minutes. This is a slow drowning. And so I just, it's defeating.
I can understand that, certainly.
Yeah, because
certainly.
I can't run, and I can't really eat in public anymore, and it's getting harder to speak. And, you know, that's what I mean. It strips
and your brain is right there. And that's what's
sharp,
so hard.
yeah.
I felt that with my dad before he died. He had an illness, and he was very much just a prisoner in his body.
That's what
and
ALS
it would have been
does.
so much easier if his mind had gone, you know, but it didn't. And that's what I just kept feeling for him, was a prisoner in his body. I think that you're very brave, and I think that maybe that someone needed to hear this, and maybe you'll be really helpful and inspiring to somebody else who's going through just the unimaginable.
I would
But
treasure that.
I will pray for peace for you.
Well, thank you.
And I just really appreciate you coming and sharing your life story with us. You are quite a man, and I really thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And if you are curious about the novel, The Moscow Enigma is about extortion, lies, duplicity, and murder, all of which take place in Moscow's dark underworld. It's available on your favorite sites for buying books. You can meet Christian Saturday, November 2nd at Barnes & Noble at Augusta Mall. He'll be doing a book signing there from noon to 5 p.m. We'll be right back.